Hello, everybody. Good data morning to you, and welcome on the Good Data Morning Show, or Good Data Evening, Good Data Afternoon, I guess, wherever you are. Well, welcome. Today, we're going to have a special guest, Jean-François, and we're going to talk to him about text analytics, and we're going to learn quite a little bit as we go along. Diana, would you mind introducing Jean-François?
Yes, hello, greetings from Romania, everyone. This time we're in different locations. I will introduce Jean-François. I am very happy he's going to be here. He has a great experience. Jean-François started coding early when he created the official website of a TV show when he was just appointed as leader of digital and data transformation for customer centricity, quality, internal audit, and internal control. He is also the leader of the natural language processing community at group level at Michelin. This is all amazing. So everyone, let us welcome Jean-François.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, Jean-François. Welcome.
How are you?
Good. Thank you so much for joining us on this show. And let me just change things around. We're going to put you in the spotlight here. There you go, so everybody can see you. And well, you know, we're honored. Somebody with your resume to come on this show, we really appreciate it. And I know there's lots to learn from you. And I encourage everybody to just follow you on LinkedIn. If they do want to learn more from you, definitely, I'm sure they can reach out and with a question here and there. Not to bother you, but just to learn from you.
Yes, of course, it will be a pleasure. And it's always a pleasure to share experience. So I'm very happy to share that with you today.
Well, thank you. And today we're going to talk about text analytics. We're going to put a comment out there. You know, what do you do with text analytics? Do you do text analytics? Are you in data science, data analysis? Are you in this field and are you interested? And if you are, have you done any text analytics? So please let us know in the comments and we'll try and, get to them, of course. But Jean-François, with text analytics, I mean, there's definitely, I think, a high demand for it with so much unstructured data being created every minute, right? There's like 500,000 tweets, 500,000 Facebook messages. There's, I don't know how many million emails being sent every minute. So there's definitely, we have a lot of data that we could use for text analytics. But, sorry, maybe I'm just starting this, right into it, but how much data would you say that one needs in order to do their own text analytics? Do you actually need big data? Do you need loads of it? Or is it a more manageable chunk that you could start with?
That's a very good question, George. Indeed, when we think about text analytics, one first thing that comes into our mind is everything that goes in social media and so on. And we already think that there are millions or dozens of millions of lines to be addressed and that we really need that to be able to do text analytics. But working for a company that do B2B surveys and that has a lot of professionals, of course, when you launch surveys to your customers, you don't have that much information. And with, let's say, thousands or let's say 10,000 messages, you see that you can already leverage something interesting. I say, of course, if you have less than 1,000, maybe it's better to read everything. But once you start to have, let's say, 1,000, 2,000, 10,000, you can already start doing great things with it. It being topic modeling, sentiment analysis, a lot of things you can really already leverage data with small amount of data.
And so I'm really curious at Michelin, what sort of applications are you having there with text analytics? Is it more for that customer support, customer sentiment? Is it product development?
Oh, it's very wide. In fact,
Yeah.
let's say that I started 2 years ago with analyzing what the customer said when we send what we call the Net Promoter Score surveys. So we ask them, would you recommend Michelin to a peer or a colleague? They give a mark between 0 and 10. And then we say, why do you put this mark? And this is really a free text message. So you have thousands of customers that answer. And then the idea was to say, okay, can I get all those messages and try to identify directly what they are talking about so that we can redirect the message to the right entity so that they can act for it. And that was really one of the first use cases we did. And that's a little my story. In fact, by doing that, we shared about it at Michelin, and we understood that there was plenty of usages for understanding better what the employees think about the company, understanding what our consumers think about the company on social media, and also a lot of other opportunities to understand better the way we can improve our relationship with people, in fact.
That's impressive. And yeah, there you go. You know, it's a company like Michelin that's able to do this and really hire somebody like you to lead them on the right way there. So thank you for sharing that with us. And I wonder from others really what sort of other applications they've had on with text analytics if they have started to use it, of course. Well, you get a couple of hellos here. There you go. You have some countrymen, which is always very nice to hear. Hello. All right. So, you know, I think you and I were just chatting by email last week really about this, kind of talking about the show and what's to come. And I think you were mentioning that really the context, that context is really crucial to know and to find out in order to be able to optimize those results. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yes, in fact, it's a very important topic. It means that when we started to analyze the customer sentiment and the topic modeling in the customer messages, we really understood that when you have different kinds of customers, for example, you really need to put the context in it to be able to leverage it. For example, if you look at the B2B customers, of course, they will be a lot interested in transactional information, the way they are invoiced, things like that, and they will talk about those messages. So if you want to do a classification on it, you should most probably label the data accordingly and have something very specific to it. If you're looking at a consumer, for example, it will be different. The people will look better on the performance of the product, the safety, and these kind of issues. So you really have to adapt to the context, to the people you're targeting, to be able to really leverage it. If you think that by doing something quite generic and applying it to everything, you will find things, it most probably won't work. And in fact, it's the real story of what is necessary to do in data. You need to understand what the value is, what the value relies, and then you adapt all your data process and your data project to be able to show that. It means that you don't have to understand everything in the messages, but you have to understand what is really important for you to be able to act after that. And that's really something that we focused on when doing that, was doing maybe separating the different kind of customers, the different contexts, to be able to take the most out of the data we have.
Can you give a more concrete example, just a short one, on the context or how you divided the customers?
Yes, of course. For example, if I'm talking about our own customers, we have B2B professional customers that are dealers, so that will sell our tires to final consumers. And on this part, we did really a specific classification it. It means that we had two people that they not lose their eyes. They did not lose their eyes when they did that, but they labeled I think 5,000 to 10,000 messages of the customers, the dealers, only for this purpose, to be able to identify really what our dealers were saying. And for the other part of our customers, that is called fleets, so it can be people that manage truck fleets or things like that, we had another labeling specific to be able to classify another way, and we release the points of interest of those customers. And by doing this, it enabled to have really the view, not the ones that we suppose the customer would have, but really to focus our classification on the way the customers express themselves. So really about the context.
Mhm.
And Jean-François, would you say that during the same project, the context could also change, or it stays constant throughout?
Definitely, the context can change because, of course, there are a lot of things that happen. Something we can talk about is COVID. And of course, there are a lot of concerns that can arise due to these kind of things. And the classification you had before probably need to be updated to matter to matter in the today's world. So of course, you have to change that to adapt to it. And it's constantly evolving. And in fact, it's a little the beauty of it. It's never ending.
And that's good, right? It always keeps you on your toes. But I wonder with something like COVID, like you mentioned, which it's not something that really we've had before, so we can't draw from experience on how that context has changed. It must be a little bit of trial and error at first to understand, well, is this because the context changed because of COVID, or is it because of other factors that we haven't taken into account, right?
Yes. It can be difficult to really understand that directly from it and to update it accordingly. Something we did in Michelin is, for example, during COVID, we stopped doing some surveys because it was not the time to do it. And of course, we also are going to look at the data to see if the data may be more specific and has to be adapted to specific context, or should we keep on going with what we already have? So we're going to run some kind of drift analysis on the data to see if we have really a change on the topics expressed, and we'll adapt everything on it.
Right. And do you have any any false positives when you're doing this text analytics, right? When you're doing that sentiment analysis, and how do you account for that false positive? Something that it's actually bad, but it appears as if it's a good thing, or the other way around.
That's a good question. Indeed, we had false positives and false negatives. We had false, we had false results. Moreover, when we talk about sentiment, because sentiment is something that is quite difficult to have. The way we look at it, because it's difficult to look at sentiment message by message. The way we look at it is we do some global check of sentiment scores. So we took a sample of our data and we add the algorithm, put the sentiment on it, and we checked if it was good or not, and we tried to improve it. That's the first thing we did. Then it was still not at 100%, and it was closer to 80%, let's say. So one times when you read 5 messages, one of those won't be right in terms of sentiment.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's difficult to expose it to all Michelin employees. But it's what we did. We exposed it to all Michelin employees with the sentiment. And we said, okay, for the average, for the like global statistics, it should be quite good. But when you're looking at commentaries one by one, there should be some mistakes. So take care. And we also did something else. We said, okay, if you see something wrong, please tell us, and we put them some, like some file or some application so that they can help us to put the right sentiment in it. So of course
Mm-hmm.
they are false, but we can try with the collective help of people to improve the data quality on it.
So then, Jean-François, with those specific exceptions that people are helping to flag that, hey, actually, this is a mistake, this should be a negative or a positive, like you said, you're putting them in some sort of a file to help you in the future. Is it that sort of file? Is that feeding some sort of an AI system that's trying to learn more from, its grammar, its construction, or is it something a bit more manual at this time?
So far, it's manual. So far, it's something quite manual. We will use it first to enforce the sentiment that is shown to people so that they have the right sentiment put by somebody. But what we really think about, and still we don't have a lot of data so far, but we expect to have more and more as people will use the tool. We are thinking about using it to feed an AI algorithm that will help us improve the sentiment score automatically. So that's a way. It's not done so far, but it's something we expect to do in the future.
And you're mentioning tools, right? So what kind of tools are you using for text analytics?
Yeah, that's a good question, and it's interesting because we evolved a lot since I started doing that. I think that the first tool that I used was simply using some Python codings and just checking if some words were there and putting in a class, and it was really the more manual thing that you could do. And then we evolved as a company to using more and more complex tools, more and more complex, like algorithm. And we went recently to use Azure Cognitive Services in terms of natural language processing to help us in the topic modeling. We improved some feature, or let's say we changed some features to be able to detect more topics by message, because most often customers don't have only one message or one topic when they express themselves. So we use some extra features, but we mostly use the Azure, let's say, components to be able to do this text analytics.
And does it handle different languages, or is it more focused on French, on English?
Yeah. In fact, we get messages from pretty much all languages, but what we do is, as we don't have so many, we translate them into English because the algorithms are quite better in English than in other languages if you have small amount of data.
Right.
And so we do that. We translate it. We have the will, if we collect enough messages in some languages, to be able to adapt, because you lose something when you do the translation. But so far, when you look only at the big picture and try to find the way to give the entities the messages that concern them, it's quite good. But of course, it can be improved.
And are you flagging those messages as they're coming in? Are you tagging them, what language it is, just so you have that metadata so you can maybe use it in the future?
Yes, we tag the original language, and when we display the commentary, we display it in the original language and in English, so that anybody can read the message. And if someone, a native speaker, looks at it, he can also see if there is a difference between the translation and the original message.
Of course there is. I have a question here. So you come to these results. Do you also suggest things that could be done? So do you also come with an action plan on how the sentiment can be improved?
Not so far. So far, we really like a display. It's in a dashboard that anybody can access to. So people are also responsible to go there. We don't manage if they do that. Of course, we manage the number of people that go there every month, and it's increasing a little recently, but we don't put action plans so far. I think it's something that is quite new to spread as widely the voice of the customer within the company. Of course, it has been done without data before, with great people sharing it, sharing messages on a regular basis. But having access to all the messages of the Net Promoter Scores from anywhere where you are in the company, you can access it. I think it's new. And so we don't monitor action plan. We hope people will take care of it. What we do is we tag it in a way that makes sense. So supply chain, marketing, and so on, so that people can really access easily to the data. And of course, what we aim to for the future is to link it more closely to operationals, link it to operational data, to be able to leverage it even better. Because of course, text analytics is good, because it enables to understand better what are the messages. But what is even better is when you are able to link it with operational data, and you put the text analytics results as an input of more complex AI algorithm to be able to see, okay, what in my operations makes that my customer thinks that way. And then you can improve the experience. But that's just a plan for the future, not done yet.
Yeah. And how invested is management in this? Or how are you trying to bring this to management, to pitch it?
So bring it to the top managers, you mean? Or
Yeah.
okay. So in fact, we have strong involvement from the top managers. We have a lot of infrastructures around customer centricity at Michelin. And we have a chief digital officer, which is a lot involved in that tool, and that is promoting it a lot, along with the customer centricity people. So they're really, willing to help us to make it a success. And we also have some guys, for example, if I take an example from the supply chain, that really likes the tool because it enables to see really what are the real feelings about the supply chain, and then you can see what is the priority on that. It's interesting because they have a plan maybe one day to take indicators based on the sentiment expressed by the customers. It's again not done yet, but it's what enabled to do this kind of text analytics in the broad scale.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing, really.
I'm just going to put a couple of comments, on this. And hi, Jean-François. Hi, George. Great to seeing you. Great to seeing you too, Stephanie. Thank you so much for joining. And hi, Arshad. It says, great to see you guys sharing your knowledge to the community. And yes, well, thank you to Jean-François for sharing that with us. And Ravit, hey, good to see you. Thank you so much. This is such an insightful session. Thanks for putting together. George, Jean, sharing amazing real-world cases. And that's true. I don't think we usually have those enough. So it's very, very useful to find somebody that is working in the industry and is able to share their knowledge like Jean-François is. Sorry, Diana, I did cut you off there. You're gonna...
I do have a curiosity, a question. Do you know what percentage of companies actually use text analytics?
I do not. I know that there are more and more. From what I see talking with some of my colleagues in France, I see that they are trying to leverage that. I see that there are a lot of questions because when you start doing that, a lot of questions arise on what should you do, how much time it will take. If I can give some examples, and it's interesting because it's a little the reason why the guys acting on artificial intelligence at Michelin wanted to build communities and proposed me to act as a leader of the natural language processing community. I think that for my case, it took a few months to build the first results and the first product. There was then another product about understanding the voice of the employees. It took about a few weeks. And then for the last projects that came to the community, it took about 1 week to do that. And why is that? It's because we invested in people that learned the algorithms, the technologies, and so on. It took the fact that people was experienced a little on what is important to show or not. We already had some pretty dashboards ready to use. And so it was really easy to start from, like new text data to, in fact, a dashboard that is usable for people. And that's really a good thing to think about when you struggle with that or you start doing text analytics, is how you can invest in maybe longer-term technologies or longer-term experience to be able to go faster in your other projects. And I can tell you there are a lot when you think in a company level.
Right. And Jean-François, sorry, I do have a couple of questions here. Well, one is from Benoit. I have a dream of connecting experience to operational data. Indeed. So he's quoting you there. I wonder, is he your colleague?
Yes.
Thank you so much, Benoit, for
he's a customer centricity guy at Michelin, so I'm working a lot with him, of course. And it's my dream too, Benoit.
And we have a question from Mark that, sorry, missed the early part of the session. And don't worry, Mark, it will be available for replay. Are you processing just customer review text? Are you able to assign sentiment to an object, for example, within a sentence paragraph?
Yes, in fact, it's something that I call the extra feature before. It means that when a customer says, for example, the quality of your ties is very good, I just found it a little expensive. It happens sometimes. Then with what we put in place, you cut the sentence in two. And then you say, okay, he's happy about the quality, so positive sentiment about the quality, but price maybe is not too happy, so unhappy sentiment about the price. So we really do that. We added some kind of intelligence in it to be able to cut on specific, when there are specific situations in the phrase. So when there are buts or ands or something like that, and we really detect that there are two different ideas in the first part and the second part, you can divide the sentence into and find two different sentiments. So we invented, or we used this kind of features. I'm not sure we invented it, but at least we use it. And so yes, we can definitely find different topics and associate separate sentiments to each one.
That's great to hear.
I have a quick question.
Hello,
How many colleagues do you have working on this? And what is your recommended team size for people to work on text analytics?
That's a good question. So far, in fact, so I started doing that on my own, let's say. So at the beginning, it was myself doing text analytics for customers. Then, in fact, we have a data factory in Michelin. And in this data factory, there is pretty much one team, or let's say almost one team that is dedicated to that. They are not all experts of text analytics. It means that in the team, from what I know, there are 2 to 3 people that are really text analytics experts. And then what we have is data engineers, data project managers that are able to connect all the dots between everything. Because of course, when you want to manage text analytics in a production way, and that's the way we do, it means we collect the feedbacks each day, we analyze it through the algorithm each day automatically, and this is done through the help of data engineers, of data project managers. So let's say if you just want to do a quick run, only one data scientist can go well. If you want to go into production, then you probably need a small team of about 5 people with 1 data engineer, 1 data project manager, and 2 to 3 data scientists. Working with the
Great
business.
answer.
I did not say that, but working closely with the business, because the key is answering the business needs.
And again, you need that business context, right? Back to your previous point, that's why it's useful, because they are able to provide that business context as well, I would imagine.
Yes.
So we only have a few minutes left, but Yana has a good question. What kind of a scale is used to capture sentiment, since it is such a soft and subjective emotion of a consumer?
Great question.
Yeah, difficult to answer. No, in fact, what we use is standard algorithm to capture the sentiment. It's the same kind of thing that is done on social media. Most often, it's a scale between -1 and 1 that express, if it's -1, you're really unhappy. If it's 1, you're really happy. So it works pretty well on most situations. Of course, it does work pretty bad in some situations, like sarcasm or something like that. If I say something like "good job," you would say it's positive. But if I say something like "okay, my product arrived late, good job," then "good job" is very negative. It's sarcasm. So you can't handle all these situations. The way we deal with it is really to try to improve our sentiment algorithm on some samples to be sure that it's not too bad. At least it's 80%, maybe 85% good. It's already very good if it's at that level. And the other part is having the people help us to improve our sentiment scoring by expressing themselves and telling, okay, maybe here you were wrong, or you were right. It would be good. And of course, it doesn't solve everything, because even when people read the messages, they might be wrong when understanding if it's good
Interpreting.
or not.
And Jean-François, we're approaching towards the end here, but do you have any parting words for data scientists that really want to learn more about text analytics? They want to get into this field?
I'd say that the way I did myself to get into this field, and I think it's a good way to start with, is really to take a small example. You take the data you find the goal you need to have with it. So you find you define a precise goal on it. So for example, I want to do topic modeling, and it's what I started with. I didn't do sentiment analysis and so on at first, just topic modeling. And then you start looking at the algorithms. They are pretty simple ones to use. If you're a data scientist, you can find a lot of resources on it on the internet. And then you start doing simple things, simple classification, simple clustering. Something that is really interesting is to start with the clustering before the classification. What I used to do at the beginning was doing what I call iterative clustering, to have really little clusters. So as long as I did not have a cluster of less than 20 messages, I did clustering and clustering, changing the words I use for the clustering and so on. And at the end, you have little clusters that you can read and put a class directly on the whole cluster. And it enables to do classification really faster than if you had to read all the messages. It's not 100% perfect, of course, but it's a good way to start.
Thank you so much, Jean-François. And unfortunately, I know there's a lot more to talk about, but we're really approaching the end here. And Mark had a question, but maybe you can follow up with him afterwards. You know, as he's asking, what's your volume of reviews are you processing per day or per week? But I'll let you to connect in private if you wish to do so, or you can just, Jean-François, maybe reply to that comment when you're rewatching the show. So thank you again so much for joining us. Good data morning to everybody, and thank you so much for being on the show. And yes, Diana, concluding marks.
Yes, I do have a concluding remark. Jean-François, I really appreciate the fact that you put so much attention to people. On your LinkedIn profile, I saw you said, or you wrote, that people are key to the transformation. You also talk about the data culture. So I find that also by doing what you do, you have an impact on people. And I really appreciate that. Thank you for doing that.
Thanks. Thanks, George. It was a pleasure to be there.
Thank you. And Andrew is saying thank you for presenting this. And also, before you leave, I want you to know that Julien here also says hello.
Good.
All right.
Thanks, Benoit.